All right. Well, I'm guessing this is a pro-Elon crowd somehow. Thanks, guys. Well, thank you for coming tonight. And it's an honor to be here and be able to speak to you. And I look forward to questions and comments. It's always interesting to have that Q&A and hear what people's concerns are and answer questions. And I think these things are great. So one of the things that has been concerning me for a while, but particularly it's ramped up this year, is that there's increasingly attacks on the Constitution, and specifically there are attacks on your right to freedom of speech. There are attacks on your right to bear arms, and without the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. So, and you have to say, why were these the First and Second Amendments? It's because the countries that people came from, if you spoke your mind, you could get imprisoned or you could get killed. That's why they said we've got to make sure we have freedom of speech. And then, well, how do we ensure that we have freedom of speech? Well, the right to bear arms. So, I mean, the founders of the Constitution must have been saying to themselves, "This country is going to be lit." And I believe everyone here has actually signed the petition in support of the, yeah? So one of the things we're doing is we want to try to get over 1 million, maybe 2 million of voters in the battleground states to sign the petition in support of the First and Second Amendment, because I think this sends a crucial message to our elected politicians who care about the outcome in battleground states, say, okay, wow, people in these states really actually care about these things. It's a big deal. But we really want to try to get as many people as possible to sign this petition. So I have a surprise for you, which is that we're going to be awarding $1 million to randomly to people who have signed the petition every day from now until the election. So, one of the challenges we're having is like, well, how do we get people to know about this petition? Because the legacy media won't report on it. Not everyone's on X. So I figure, how do we get people to know about it? Well, this news, I think, is going to really fly. So every day between now and the election, we'll be awarding $1 million, starting tonight. All right. So tonight's person is John Dreyer. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
So, by the way, John had no idea So anyway, you're welcome. Yeah. So the only thing we ask for the $1 million is that you be a spokesperson for the petition, and that's it. Really, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So wait, do you want to say anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Elon. This is great. I'm really ecstatic. I want to congratulate you on your rocket catch last week. Big curveball. But yeah, I've been following you for 10 years. Got your biography 10 years ago, and been watching ever since. And big fan. So
Thank you. All right. Well, cool. So. Yeah, so I think this is kind of fun, it seems like a good use of money, basically. We really need to go all out to protect the Constitution. The Constitution is there for a reason. There was great wisdom in that document. And if anything, it is what will save us from tyranny, and yeah. So. Well, let's see. So. I don't actually have any, as you can see, there's no teleprompter or anything. I'm just like, what should I say next? I don't know. It's worth reiterating why I'm supporting Donald Trump for president. There's. I think important things that need to happen. I mean, I think we essentially want the sensible basic things. We want safe cities. We want secure borders. We want obviously support for the Constitution. We want, I think, less government sort of overreach. I think we want to restore freedom to the people, so that your individual liberties are prized, and you get to do what you want to do, and you're not sort of overregulated to death, which is kind of what's happening. It's sort of shocking, but I think there's something like 428 federal agencies. That's almost 2 agencies per year since the founding of the country, and more being created. And so I call this like sort of strangulation by overregulation. And this is crazy. So I think with the Trump presidency, we have a real opportunity to reduce the size of government, to have a sensible regulation, and really free the American people to do what they want to do. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, these are sort of right-wing values. They seem like sensible values. In fact, I find it strange that these are even question marks, frankly. So it's just obvious things that should happen. Well, you know what? Let's go straight into Q&A, because I feel like a lot of things you've kind of heard before, or people out there have heard before. And if I keep repeating myself, it's going to be kind of boring. So, better to have questions, and then the questions can lead to interesting discussions.
I'm Senator Greg Rothman. Welcome to Central Pennsylvania. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
So you've been in Pennsylvania at least the last week or so. Anything surprises you about this state, our Commonwealth? What have you noticed? What have you seen that's been a surprise to you?
Well, you know, I did live here for 3 years, so I'm not like a total stranger. I went to college in Pennsylvania, so, you know, I'm not like some, you know, guy who just like, what is the state? What's it like? I lived here for 3 years. So, no, it's a great state. I really enjoyed my time here, and and I think actually Pennsylvania is it's the linchpin in this election, you know, and how Pennsylvania goes, I think, is how the election goes, and yeah.
Elon, my name's Chandi. I'm one of the pastors here. Thank you for hosting your town hall here at Life Center in Pennsylvania. My question for you is, would you hold an official position in the Trump administration? If so, what would it be? Would you create a new role for you to help save our nation?
Well, yes. So I've had many conversations with President Trump, who is very much aligned in thinking that we need significant government reform. We need to get the government out of people's lives, really. And have America be the land of liberty, which is that is what has made America great, is the land of liberty and opportunity. You know, so you maximize people's personal freedom, and we make sure that getting ahead is a function of hard work and talent, and you know, an honest day's work. That's really what should get people ahead, and that's the only thing, you know.
Good to see you. My name's Josh. I'm worried about kids in a big way. I grew up in Wyoming County, up north, small town area, real conservative. Got an education at Penn State, economics. And it really turned me away from my father and our small business that we had. I was basically raised to take it over. And I did once I graduated, but it kind of imploded afterwards, about a year. And I moved to California, and I didn't know what really happened. We got in a big argument, and I had to go. You know, it was freeze, so flight happened next. Explored homosexuality, considered transitioning to a female, and
wow, this is quite the journey.
Yeah, and I think that there's a big problem with education that is having people. I guess my question is, what are other things we can do besides the impact that we can have on the Department of Education to help confuse children that are trying to know who they are and how they can fit into their community and be productive?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think there's well, what I think. I mean, what I see is that there's like a tremendous amount of propaganda being pushed on kids in schools, and it's I think it's just messing with kids' heads. You know, I mean, anyone that goes through puberty, it's going to be an identity crisis. You know, going through puberty, like it's normal kind of to have an identity crisis, really. And I think we should tell kids, like, yeah, you know, if you're confused, that's okay. It's like it's coming of age, you know. We shouldn't like steer them in a particular direction or convince them of something that they're not. It's okay to go through an identity crisis. Everyone does. But I think what I see in schools is that they tend to send kids down paths that they wouldn't actually go down because they're being pushed down that way by the teachers, you know, and by the propaganda that's pushed in the schools. So. I think we need to tell kids it's okay to live with uncertainty, that it's normal to have uncertainty, and it'll settle down over time, and you know, and don't make any permanent decisions. You know, like decisions that can't be reversed can't be reversed. So you know, I think we definitely should not have any sort of sterilization of kids, you know, below 18. That's no good. There's an age of consent for a reason. And, you know, we don't let kids get tattoos until they're 18, and we don't, you know, alcohol is technically illegal until 21, although that's often, you know, observed in the breach. But we just want people to not make decisions when they're young that make them unhappy as an adult. That's really what it comes down to. And I think you want to say we want to optimize for people's long-term happiness. But that means like making sure, like I said, that there are no irreversible changes during a kid when a kid has an identity crisis, which every kid has, and that's totally cool. And so my opinion is we should just tell kids when they're going through puberty and an identity crisis, that's totally normal. And don't get too stressed about it. And things will settle out how they settle out. And, you know, that's the right thing to do.
Thank you for speaking directly with the voters of the United States. It's a pretty great of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Removing yourself from the equation, what does it say about the Biden-Harris administration and the would-be Harris administration that that they haven't worked with such great American companies such as SpaceX, Tesla, and then even speak out against X?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty weird. You know, yeah, because it was kind of a surprise because it's like, you know, Biden, you know, for example, had that like electric vehicle summit at the White House 6 months after getting inaugurated, and specifically excluded Tesla, even though Tesla makes more electric cars than ever. Yeah, it was not cool. And then credited GM with driving the electric vehicle revolution, and that was the second event. And then in that quarter, GM shipped 26 electric cars, and Tesla shipped 300,000. So I'm like. And you know, Tesla's at this point about 140,000 people. It's like there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from 140,000 people working hard to make great electric cars, you know, to be sort of cold-shouldered like that for no reason. It's like, what's the deal? You know, that was wrong. So. Yeah, and then there was like that crazy thing where SpaceX competed for the Rural Broadband Initiative, which, and by the way, I'm actually generally against subsidies and incentives. You know, like we should let taxpayers keep their money, is my opinion. But they had this like $42 billion thing, and we competed and we won, and we would have actually been able to supply a lot of Starlink terminals to the states that were affected by the hurricanes, and they revoked the award. It's messed up. Like, why? And then to date, that $42 billion program, total number of citizens that have received broadband from that $42 billion allocation is 0. Now that's, if you want to see, $42 billion for 0? I would call that waste. Yeah, that's waste. That is not a good use of money. You know, so there was also a big government initiative, I think $7 billion, something like that, for a nationwide network of electric superchargers. And I think they had made like 10. And I'm like, this is the most egregious waste of money. And there's so many situations like that. So, you know, it just goes to like bureaucrats and consultants, and nothing gets done, and it's wasting your money, which is crazy. So, what I'm saying is like this: there's the opportunity to reduce government waste is actually, I think, easy because there's so much of it. It's not like they just don't care about your money, which is messed up. And so I think the Department of Government Efficiency is going to face a target-rich environment for reducing cost.
I've been working with voter registration, and a lot of people are concerned about the escalation in the U.S. military in Israel because there's over 100 troops there on land now. What do you think of this idea? A boring company offering to build an island off the coast of Israel and call it Palestine. They can finally have their nation state like Cyprus. It's been done in China, Dubai, and the Philippines, and we can finally end these endless wars. Could there be enough rubble in Gaza to do it? Thank you.
Well, Gaza is a thorny problem indeed. The Middle East has been an area of contention, well, for thousands of years. I would say that I do not know the solution to that difficult situation there. I'm not sure there is. I'm not sure there is a good solution. There may be, but I think we need to make sure that America is solid. I'm like, let's just make sure America is strong. And I do think we interfere too much in what other countries do. And a lot of our attempts at regime change, in fact, the success of the State Department in achieving regime change is terrible. So there's all this effort spent, all this money spent trying to affect regime change in various countries, but failed in Cuba, failed in Iran, failed in North Korea, failed in Russia. Where were the successes? But a lot of people died, and a lot of money was spent, but what good has come of it? So I think we should interfere with other countries a lot less.
So my question is, on election night 2020, I sat down to watch the returns, and I watched them steal the election. All right? I saw it live, watched it all night, okay? If you were watching it then, you knew at 9 o'clock when Fox declared Arizona that it was going down, and that was the moment, okay. But even worse than that was over the next months watching the courts and the shenanigans in the courts and the lack of good representation that Trump had, and just nothing happening because there was obviously a problem. Nothing seemed to be happening in the courts at all. And between that day and now, it doesn't look like anything has changed. And so we're about to I think the votes matter, but the count is what matters. And if the courts are corrupted, we're not going to get anywhere. And so are you participating in that? It seems as though you're aware of that. How can you help solve that issue so that we don't have that problem again?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the margin of victory is high enough, then I think it can exceed any sort of cheating that may take place. So we got to aim for just a massive margin. That's the key. It's really aim for a margin that it is impossible to have any shenanigans. But on the X platform, I certainly would invite people to, if there's any voting issues, if people think there's a fraud, then post the images, post the videos, post the evidence, and let's shine a bright light on. And the brighter the light, the harder it will be to cheat.
Hi, Elon. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Thank you for the work you're doing for humanity. There are a lot of changes happening in our world right now, a lot of changes happening in our own country, and these changes are being perceived as chaos. But I always say that if it wasn't for chaos, we wouldn't be able to experience peace. If it wasn't for chaos, we wouldn't be able to experience growth and evolution. And with AI being the new kid on the block and advancing at an incredible pace, I guess my question is, how do you foresee the election of President Donald Trump influencing technological advancements and societal transformation?
Well, I think the reducing this sort of strangulation by overregulation is a super big deal. The rocket that we were just talking about, it was sitting on the launch pad for 2 months waiting for paperwork to be processed. And it's just insane that that the SpaceX team can build a giant rocket faster than the government can move paperwork from one desk to another. Like, that's just crazy. And the problem is that's getting worse and worse every year. So if that trend continues, it's just going to be illegal. We just won't be able to get anything done. That's why I call it like this extreme overregulation, where there's just new agencies being created every year. And the difficulty of getting anything done is like the square of the number of agencies involved. So if there's one agency, it's like 1, but if there's like 3 agencies, it's like 9 times harder, because they all have to meet with each other. We get crazy things like SpaceX got fined $140,000 for dumping potable drinking water on the ground at Starbase, where we launched the rocket, because we cool the launch pad with water, and in an excess of caution, we said, we're going to bring in drinking water just to be sure, and we're going to cool the pad with that. We didn't know there was a permit needed for that. Water falls from the sky all the time. Starbase is in a tropical thunderstorm area. It rains so much that the roads get flooded. Why are we getting fined for a tiny amount of water on the ground? But the EPA said they're not going to process any future applications for launch unless we pay this fine. So we just got, held for ransom, basically. And that's tip of the iceberg. I got a bunch of sort of nutty stories, Some of them are, I guess, kind of funny. There's, we had to do this, SpaceX had to do the study to see if Starship would hit a shark. And I'm like, it's a big ocean, There's a lot of sharks. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. They were like, well, you have to do the study on whether you can hit a shark. We're like, what? And then we said, okay, fine, we'll do the analysis. And then, well, can you give us the shark data? They're like, no, we can't give you the shark data. We're like, okay, well, then we're in a bit of a quandary. How do we solve this this shark probability issue? And they said, well, we could give it to our Western division, but we don't trust them. And I'm like, am I in a comedy sketch here? They're worried about the shark density data, like the people who hunt sharks for shark fins somehow getting their hands on this shark data. And so eventually I think we got the data, and we could run the analysis to say, like, yeah, the sharks are going to be fine. But they wouldn't let us proceed with launch until we did this crazy shark data. And then we thought, okay, now we're done. And they said, but what about whales? I'm like, when you look at a picture of the Pacific, what percentage of the surface area of the Pacific do you see as whale? Because look at a picture, I don't see any, it's like, where's a whale? And honestly, if the ship did hit a whale, it's like, honestly, that whale had it coming, because it's like the odds are so low. It's like Final Destination, the whale edition. It's like fate had it in for that whale, And so we had to do the whale analysis. And it's like, okay, yeah, the whales will be fine too, It goes on. And then there's like, well, what if the rocket goes underwater, then explodes, and then the whales have hearing damage? Like, this is real. This is actually, and we're like, look, if we could make a rocket go underwater and be a submarine, that would be like a feat of physics we could not accomplish, okay? This is not how it works. So anyway, just one like crazy thing after another, where, so this is why I'm really feeling the pain of the overregulation. And there's like multiple federal agencies that have overlapping, they're all doing the same thing, basically. So anyway, we got to stop this madness because we just won't be able to get anything done.
Hey, Elon. My name is Dean. I'm an engineering student here in Pennsylvania. My family moved out here from my home state of New Jersey because me and my brother were facing some injustices regarding the COVID vaccine mandates a couple of years ago.
Yeah, those were crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nutty. I mean, like, I'm not anti-vaccine, but I'm anti-forcing people to take a vaccine, that's for sure.
Well, also, the COVID vaccine did not work.
Yeah, and and suppressing information about it and side effects, that was terrible. So, it was like, the Biden-Harris administration try to mandate that any company that has any federal contracts, which is most companies, would be forced to vaccinate everyone at the company, or that person would have to be fired. Now, thankfully, that was shut down by the Supreme Court. But, like, that's insane. That is a massive infringement on your liberty.
Yeah, so speaking to you right now, I mean, I recognize the magnitude of it, that I'm grateful for the opportunity to have your ear for a moment. And I wish I could, talk about more than I'm going to be able to talk about right now with you, but I would like to touch on the topic of education reform. I've heard you express in the past some dissatisfaction with the way we go about education today. I found your concept of levels that a student can advance at his own pace to be compelling. If we include students, teachers, and administrators as occupations, education is the industry that employs the most people in the country. Our brightest minds are usually traversing the education system for their entire youth and early adulthood. Do you think it would be within the scope of the Department of Government Efficiency to try and investigate how we can minimize the misuse of Americans' money and, more importantly, their time by providing ways to streamline the process, avenues to certify oneself with aptitude tests, and somehow counteract the unproductive arms race of credentials and degrees?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. No, I think it's pretty nutty. Like, I mean, ironically, if you look at how Americans have performed in academic tests since the establishment of the Federal Department of Education, it's been downhill. So, like, why are we spending all this money for worse results? And then there's a lot of the money in education is actually for pushing propaganda, instead of teaching kids the facts about the world, like, things that are actually useful. So we definitely need to stop the propaganda, the pushing of the propaganda in schools, and teach kids skills that are actually useful. I'm a big believer in that. So.
Hi, Elon. Thanks for taking the time to do this. This is fantastic. My question involves regulation. Tesla full self-driving has the potential to save tens of thousands of lives per year. What do you think is the right way for regulators to look at the technology, and what factors do they look at to try to get to the goal of unsupervised self-driving? And I've seen its growth over time. I've been a beta tester since the safety score, and 12.5.4.1 drove me here with zero intervention.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I think that would be a good thing for there to be a federal mandate for self-driving. And really, the threshold should just be that: do you have a statistically significant proof that when the car is in self-driving mode, that the probability of injury is much lower than if it's manually driven. Like well above the margin of error. Like, let's say it's like, 50% or 100% better with 1 billion miles of driving. So if you've got a large data set and clear data to back it up, then I think you should obviously allow self-driving as soon as it is obviously safer than manual driving. It's pretty straightforward, I think.
Hi, Elon. My name is Molly Hughes. I'm an engineer from Lancaster. And I just want to say thank you for all you've done for free speech. And I realize that's saying almost nothing at all in proportion to what it's meant to all of us. My question is, given that Marxist ideology is responsible for the death of 100 million people in the 20th century, why do you think it's making a resurgence, and what can we do to help combat it in our daily lives?
I mean, I agree with you. It's kind of blowing my mind that, like, I thought that was a dead philosophy, but it's alive and well in a lot of our educational institutions. You know, I think part of it is that you've got a lot of colleges with these giant endowments that insulate them from reality. So you can sort of have this fake communist utopia at a university because they don't have any feedback loop to reality because they got these giant endowments and a ton of government funding too. So that allows them to be disconnected from the realities of you know, the free market. They take advantage of the free market, but they live in a sort of pseudo-communist world in a lot of these colleges. So they just don't get it. But it is remarkable, and there are a lot of memes about this, because like, how often do we need to run this experiment? You know, it should be very obvious that the economic structure, the economic philosophy that is the good one, is the one that does not need to build walls to keep people in. You know, so it's pretty like, you know, North Korea it builds a wall to keep people in. You know, East Germany had to build walls to stop people from going to West Germany. You know, the Berlin Wall was built by East Berlin, not West Berlin. So the philosophy that has to build a wall to keep people in, that's the bad one, okay? I don't know how it's so obvious. And yet you see a resurgence of it over and over again. And if you study history, actually, even in ancient times, this was you see this cycle of you know, it obviously wasn't called Marxism 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, but that you have this back and forth between free market and sort of government, and free market and government, and it just seems to be the natural cycle of things. Yeah, but obviously I'm a big believer in the free market, which is, the free market is just like, let people buy the things they want to buy and let people make the things they want to make. It's not that complicated.
Thank you so much for being here. My question is, what role do you think AI should play in our democratic republic? And how do you think it can be used to uphold our constitutional freedoms? And what do you think will be the potential consequences of creating AI that is far more intelligent and capable than human beings, with the exception of you, of course?
Well, I do worry about AI, actually, because we are creating an intelligence that ultimately will be far more intelligent than any human, and ultimately more intelligent than the sum of all humans. So in creating AI, we need to be very careful, and like kind of, it's like having a sort of a genius child. You want to have that child grow up with good values. I think the most important thing in training AI is that it's rigorously truthful. Even if this is very, very important, essential, and my concern about a lot of the AIs that are being developed are that they're trained to lie, you know, and in some cases with potentially disastrous consequences. I mean, when Google Gemini came out, you know, people asked, like, which is worse, misgendering Caitlyn Jenner or global thermonuclear war? And it said misgendering Caitlyn Jenner. I'm like, that's a problem, guys. Because if this AI becomes super powerful, it could decide that the best way to avoid misgendering is to kill all humans, which makes the probability of misgendering 0. So it's very important to have AI be maximally truthful and curious and love humanity very important.
Pleasure to meet you and talk with you. Question about manufacturing. One of the concerns with this election cycle is bringing manufacturing back on shore.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, you have a lot of expertise with this. What do you think it's going to take to make American manufacturing great again? What's the government's role in that from your perspective?
Well, as I mentioned, I think deregulation will actually be very helpful. You know, it's like borderline impossible to get big projects done. Like you want to build a big factory, it's like extremely difficult to do in the U.S. So I think deregulation will help a lot with that. You know, I do think we probably need to be sensible about tariffs and just you know if there is dumping of goods from other countries, we probably should have tariffs that you know prohibit that. But I think in general we should prize manufacturing in the U.S. a lot more. But I mean, America still is the second biggest manufacturer in the world after China. And I'm a big fan of manufacturing. Obviously, I built a lot of factories. Spent a lot of time on the production floor. So, and I think part of it is like I don't know, maybe manufacturing became like uncool or something. I don't know. But as I was saying earlier, we're way too many people in America in finance and law, and I think a bunch of them should really be doing manufacturing instead. You know.
My question is, aside from what you said about self-driving cars, what's your stance on government mandates for electric vehicles?
Yeah, I actually generally think that there should not be government mandates. I'm, you know, I'm generally against incentives and tax breaks and these for all industries. So whether you know, I mean, there are lots of incentives and tax breaks in oil and gas as well. You know, I think we should just not have them. We should just get the government out of things and let the market, you know, figure it out. So I'm generally against government mandates. So yeah. All right. With that, I'd like to thank you all for coming. It's been an honor to speak with you, and yeah. So.